Today, I'm smoking a chuck roast on the Weber Kettle. That's right, chuck roast. I have about a 5-pound boneless chuck roast that I'm going to be smoking today using hickory wood, maybe a little pecan. And if you've ever done chuck roast, you'll understand what I'm about to say. It can be just about as finicky as a brisket. It's not a quick cut of meat to smoke at a low temperature in order to get tender. You need to take it to its own stall and past that. There are some methods that help it along, and I'm going to be using one of those today, which is similar to brisket, which is wrapping it when it gets to about 160, 165 degrees. I'm going to be wrapping it in foil today, not paper. But until it gets to 160 degrees, it's just going to bathe in that smoke. Now this cook today could take 9 or 10 hours. Usually somewhere between 4 and 6 is when it's going to hit that 160-ish temperature. I'm going to be starting it cold right out of the refrigerator. I just took it out and we're going to be rubbing it here in just a second. I'm going to be using 2 different seasonings today. One is a Northwoods fire seasoning from Penzeys Spices. The other is a 21 seasoning salute from Trader Joe's. Let's get to rubbing. Get a good coating of this Penzeys on here. Get both sides. Just want to make sure we get the edges here. Thick chuck roasts like this have some pretty sizable edges, so you want to get this flavoring on there too. Don't neglect the sides. Want a really good coating because this is going to be bathing in the smoke for quite a while. We want this coating to just sort of soak in and help build a bark. Now sort of the outer rub here is going to be this 21 seasoning salute from Trader Joe's. Same thing, you want to get it on those edges. I'll mention it again because I mention it in every video I do something like this. I prefer not to use binders. If you use a binder, that's perfectly fine. I prefer not to use anything like mustard or Worcestershire sauce generally. And then over the top of this, I'm going to give it another dusting of that Penzeys Northwoods Fire Seasoning. You may be wondering what I'm going to do with this chuck roast when it's done. I haven't really decided. I haven't decided if I'm going to pull it, slice it, make sandwiches. Don't know. I'm going to wait and see how it turns out, what the tenderness factor is at the end. If it's falling apart, I'll pull it. But right now it's rubbed, it's ready, and the kettle is up to temp. So let's get it out there and get it smoking. So the temperature of the kettle right now is 279. That's a little too high. It's gonna moderate when I put the meat in there and then I'll adjust the vents. I'm shooting for 225 to 250 today. If it hits around 250 and stays in that range, I'll be happy, but I don't want it to go too hot. I don't want it to drop too low, so we'll have to monitor this. So I have about 3/4 of a basket of briquettes in there using one of the Weber briquette baskets. I'm not using both of the baskets, just one. Adding 2 in there would be too much heat for this. I've used some, reused charcoal in there. You can see the smaller ones, and then some fresh charcoal to help get it going and keep it going at the beginning. I'll be adding more charcoal as we go along. On the right side, you can see I've got some foil there to catch some of the drippings. I'm not saving the drippings. I just don't want them to collect and cake down in the bottom of the kettle as much as possible. As soon as I get this chuck roast on, I'm going to be adding a piece of hickory on this charcoal. I'm going to add my temperature probe on this side and try and get it as far into the center as possible. So I have the grill temperature probe here, the meat temperature probe here, both of them running out this slot that I put in the Weber Kettle, and that will give me good readings on the ThermoPro all day. You can see right now we've got an internal meat temperature 39, which is just perfect, just came out of the refrigerator, and the pit temp doesn't matter right now, the lid's off. So let's get that hickory on there, get the lid back on, and start smoking. We're going to give our piece of hickory just a minute to catch before we put the lid back on to start building temp back up. The hickory's going. It'll go out in a few minutes and start creating smoke. Let's get our lid on and build back up to temp. See, our temp came back up pretty quickly within about 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to watch these temps and the vents for a minute and see what I need to do to keep them at about that 250. It'll take just a little bit of adjustment. I'm going to take this upper vent down to just about 3/4. Just about like that. And that should help keep us right around that 250 range. But we'll be adjusting it all day. And when I say all day, I mean all day. Remember, this is Brisket's little cousin, the chuck roast. You have to be patient with it. It's all about tenderness. So the grill temp is down to about, I think, 223 or so. I got a meat temp about 95, or a little over an hour, which is good. We're going great. I want to add a few briquettes to this to maintain that temperature now that we're going forward, and also to knock off any ash at the bottom of the briquette basket. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knock some of this ash off just by shaking this basket. I'm going to get good flow of air down there at the bottom. And I'm going to start adding some briquettes here. You can see our piece of hickory igniting again. And I'm actually going to put a fresh piece of hickory here right on top. I'm going to give that a minute to catch with a little more oxygen. There's our chuck roast. Still very early in this cook. We've got hours and hours and hours to go. All right, let's get this lid back on. And I'm still going to leave those vents at just about 3/4. We have that really nice hickory smoke. Smells just amazing. It's going to be perfect on this chuck roast. All right, we're running a little bit hot here, so I'm going to adjust the vents. And we're about 3.5 hours into this cook. 146, got about 14-15 degrees to go before we wrap it. But with a 284 grill temp, that's a little too high, so I'm going to adjust these vents. I'm going to take it down a little bit below 3/4, maybe about 2/3 there. We'll let that help bring that temperature down. So great smoke coming out of there. It's doing really well. It's just a beautiful spring day today, about 72, 73 degrees, perfect time to be out by the grill. And I wanted to remind you, if you're interested in any of the items I use in this video, I'll put links in the description down below, and that way you can check them out yourself. Let's see how our temperature's doing now. See, 280, we're starting to come down. We were at about 284, so just adjusting that top vent starts bringing it down. I'll bring you back when we're getting close to wrapping it. So the internal meat temperature of the chuck roast is at 153. We're at about 5 hours and 45 minutes in, and it's been at this 153 for about 20 minutes. So every piece of meat is different. The stall for this piece of meat is not at 160 or 165. It's probably closer to 153. So we're going to go ahead and take it out now and wrap it up in foil and add a little bit of apple cider to it for some moisture. And so let's get it out of there. Oh, that is looking really nice. Look at the bark on that. You know it's hard to see in this really bright sunlight, but the bark on this is just, oh, beautiful. All right, let's get this off there. Just gonna remove the temperature probe while we wrap this. Using my nitrile gloves with polycotton liners. These work really well for short uses when you're moving hot meat from one spot to another. I'm going to wrap this in 2 layers of foil, but first I'm going to add a small amount of apple cider vinegar. So it's probably less than 1/4 cup. We want to wrap it tight. Get it nice and tight. Turn it. There we go. Now when we're not directly touching the meat with that moisture, I can just use these polycotton gloves. All right, let's get this back on the grill. Now I'm going to try and place the probe as close as I can to the center once again. I think we got it right where it was before, if you can see that. It's reading 157. So we're within a few degrees of where it was. So now I'm going to get this closed up and heating back up. Before I do that, I'm going to put a couple more pieces of charcoal in there. Knock the ashes down. I'm probably going to put about 7, 8 pieces of charcoal in there. Let's get the lid back on and keep cooking. All right, the grill temp raced up a little bit. You can see 291, and I just let it because we were already in foil with that moisture, wanted to kind of advance the process, and we just hit 201. So we're gonna check it now for tenderness. We're not necessarily gonna pull it, but if it's tender enough, we're gonna pull it and then put it in a pan, cover it with foil, and it's gonna sit for 30 minutes to an hour. Let's go have a look. Now we can't really see anything here, but we're gonna be probing it using the instant read just as a tenderness testing device. So let's see, through the foil. That's very tender. Let's see over here. That's tender. That's tender. I think we're tender. All right, so I'm gonna take the temperature probe out, take this off, put it in a pan. So I have the chuck roast still in its foil, sitting in a pan with another layer of heavy duty foil over it. And I'm gonna leave it sitting like this probably for 30 to 45 minutes, maybe as long as an hour. I'll bring you back when it's time to open it up. Here is the chuck roast. Look at that bark. Even after being wrapped for about, I think it was about 40 minutes, there is a wonderful bark on this. All right, let's cut into it. I think I'm gonna go right about here. Ooh. Can you see that smoke ring? Let me see, I think I need to turn it for the grain. I'm gonna turn it just a little bit and cut another slice this way just to see. Ooh, that looks good, yeah. Look at that. Oh, it's ready to fall apart in my hand. Can you see that smoke ring? It is so tender. Look at how floppy that is. All right, I gotta taste this. I'm not only gonna taste this chuck roast on its own, I'm gonna taste it with a little bit of barbecue sauce, because that's how I decided I'm gonna eat this, as a sandwich, a barbecue sandwich. First, on its own. A really good smoke ring. I think I showed you that earlier. Oh. That Penzeys Northwoods fire spice does have some fire to it. It's gonna go really good with some barbecue sauce. Nice and tender, completely juicy. It's all over my fingers. Great smoke penetration with that hickory. I can taste the hickory. This is good. But now, barbecue sauce. That is some Sweet Baby Ray's with that heat. Really good. Sweet and heat together. Another piece now with some more barbecue sauce. That is so good. I'm extremely pleased that I decided to do a chuck roast today. If you decide you want to do a chuck roast, either on a kettle grill like I did, or in an offset smoker, or an electric smoker, however you do it, remember, low and slow, just like brisket. This took almost 8.5 hours. I foiled it at just under 6 hours, and then it went another 2 hours after that. Then it sat for about 40 minutes in a pan covered with foil. If you take that time, you get the tenderness and you get the taste.
The key, though, is to remember it's not about the time. It's about the tenderness. Time is only a guide with this. Just like with brisket, you're aiming for that tenderness. That's why we probed it, to see if it was tender, and it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out the other videos on my channel, and consider subscribing. And if you do, make sure you click that bell so you'll get notifications when I put out new videos. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.